Good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, April 1st, April Fool's Day. I read somewhere online something that said we don't need April Fool's Day this year because what's going on in the world is the biggest April Fool's joke ever. And I tend to agree with that. Um, Before we get into today's lesson, I just wanted to say that I'm really proud of you guys for the way that you're handling this switch to online learning. But I really, really miss seeing you guys every day. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder, and that's certainly the case. I miss our time together, especially since we're going to be starting Gatsby, which has always been the highlight of my teaching year for sophomores. So I do miss you guys. I hope you're all handling everything as best as can be. And please know that I am here for you if there's anything that you need school-wise or if you just want to talk. All right, so what are we doing today? Today we are going to be talking about your final wrap-up project for Huck Finn. All right, so I'm just going to pull up this page. So what you're going to be doing is you are going to be basically writing a letter to the editor or letter to your school board. I don't know how familiar you are with letters to the editor, but in a newspaper, when there's always an opinion page, and it's an opportunity for people to respond to stories that have been publicized in the paper. It's just a chance for you to kind of raise other questions, refute things that have been mentioned in the paper. So the editorial board gets to pick and choose which ones they put into the paper, but they're written by citizens and they typically are addressing something that the paper has already addressed. So you can just Google letters to the editor. You are actually going to be writing what I would say is a letter to the school board. So I'm going to pull up the assignment. All right, so make this a little bigger so you guys can see it. So I'm going to be posting this assignment to Edmodo, but I just want to go through it with you today. All right, so here's the gist of it. So the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is being challenged by a group of community members, parents and students, and they do not want Huckleberry Finn to be taught in the schools anymore. And so you're just you student. And in terms of the voice, the audience is obviously anyone who's going to read your letter, but particularly the members of the community board, the school board, who would be making the decision whether or not Huck Finn would remain as part of the curriculum. All right, so you are going to be in your letter arguing a position concerning whether Huckleberry Finn should be part of the curriculum. All right, now, it doesn't matter to me. I don't know why that comes up every time that I try to use my pen, but hold on one sec. All right, so this part here, right? It's not dark enough. Let's go red. All right, so you have the option to pick whatever stance you want. And when I tell you that it doesn't matter to me what position you take, it honestly doesn't matter to me. If you can argue that the full edition of Huck Finn should be taught. You can argue that it should be taught, but the version that takes out the N word and puts in a different word should be taught. You can argue that it shouldn't actually be taught in the classroom, but it's something that could be outside class reading. Or you can argue some combination of all of that. You can argue that it should never be taught and that another book that could raise some of the issues that it does, that Finn does, could be taught in its place. So the first thing that you have to do is decide for yourself what position you want to take on the book. All right, but you have to be able to defend your position using textual evidence from the book and outside sources. Okay, all right, so it's going to be in letter format, but it does not have to be in essay format. You still have to use, of course, 12-point Times New Roman font, 1-inch margins, and double spacing. But it does not have to have the heading at the top that you would normally do for an essay for me. Instead, you're going to actually format it like it's a letter that you are sending to the paper or the school board. All right. It has to have academic language. It cannot be written like you're writing to a friend. You are trying to persuade the school board to rule on in favor in the way that you are arguing in this letter. So, and of course, it's going to be published in the paper. So you need to use academic formal language. It should not be colloquial language that you would use to write to just anyone. Okay. All right. So here's the thing everyone's always worried about. Okay, so when is it going to be due? It's going to be due by Wednesday, April 8th on turnitin.com. And you have until late Wednesday night. Now, that being said, next week is Holy Week. So I believe, now I haven't gotten confirmation of this, but I believe that we will have B1, B2, Monday, Tuesday, and then according to the regular schedule, Wednesday, Thursday, Good Friday, then Easter is on Sunday, and then we head off Monday and Tuesday of the following week. I would assume that we at the very least have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week off. So technically we don't have school on Wednesday. Again, haven't gotten actual confirmation of this, but this is what I'm assuming. So if you're somebody who wants to get this done and turned in before Wednesday, April 8th, and you want the day free, by all means, you can do that. I just wanted to make sure that you had a week basically to get in what you need to get in, okay? So Wednesday, April 8th, or before that, if you want to make Tuesday your arbitrary own deadline, that's fine too, okay? So, and it will be on turnitin.com that you have to do that. Okay, so let's talk about the parameters, what this letter is going to look like. All right, so you're going to have an opening paragraph, and that is where you're going to put your argumentative thesis statement, right? Okay, so an argumentative thesis is your position on what you want to have happen regarding Huck Finn. So you should have a little bit of introduction, meaning, hi, I am a student at St. Basil Academy, and having recently just finished The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, I feel very adamantly that this book should not be taught in the school because, and then you can give your reasons in the thesis, or you can simply state in your thesis the position you want to take. I firmly believe that an edited version where the N word is taken out would be perfectly fine, and that's the position you're taking. You have to state it in that introduction part of the letter. Okay, so your thesis is the argument position you are taking on how the book should be taught. All right, so body paragraph number 1 then would be your first reason that you are offering in support of your position. All right, so if for some reason so say you're saying, I don't want to teach the book. I don't think it should be taught. And the first reason is because the use of the N word is too much. It's insensitive. It causes people to feel uncomfortable, and therefore that's not needed, and we should do away with it. Okay, so that's your first argument. That should be your topic sentence, right? So the topic sentence should contain the reason being argued, right? So the very first line of that body paragraph should be the reason that you are, the first reason you are suggesting the outcome that you are, okay? Now, that has to be supported by at least, in that paragraph, one quote from the book that highlights in some way what you are talking about, okay? Now, we're going to go over this because even though it's a letter, you still have to use MLA format for all of your quotations, okay? So we'll talk about that in a little bit, all right? Second paragraph is a separate, different reason that you are offering in support of your argument position. So if you're saying, I don't want the book to be taught, 1, because of the prolific use of the N word, Two, the second reason I don't want it taught is because it glorifies slavery and the institution of slavery, and that's not something that we need to go over or talk about. Okay, suppose that's your second argument. All right, so again, whatever your second position reason is, that goes in the topic sentence in that beginning of that paragraph. You also need at least one quote from the book in that paragraph. Okay, now the third paragraph is going to be acknowledging one counter argument and explaining why you believe that argument is not persuasive or not a valid reason to have the school board go against what you're suggesting. So, for example, if you are arguing that you don't think the book should be taught, you could say, I understand that in those in favor of teaching the book suggest that Mark Twain and this book is a quintessential snapshot of life in the pre-Civil War South, and that it's the finest example of realism that we have. Okay, suppose that's the opposition argument that you're going to address. You will lay that out in the topic sentence, and then the rest of the paragraph should be you explaining why that argument isn't a valid one. So something along the lines of, there are other examples of realism that can be used in order to capture that time period that would not be as offensive. And then you'd go in and explain. Okay? So those are basically your three body paragraphs: two in support of your position, and one acknowledging an alternative position and explaining why it's not valid. Okay. Just clean that up. All right, so that's basically what's going on. Then you'll have a conclusion where you are, again, kind of making a passionate plea for your desired result, and wrapping up as you would like an essay. And then I'm going to show you an example, and then you'll have your salutation at the end. Okay. All right. So now this is the part I want to talk about now. All right. So your letter must contain two quotations from an additional outside source. So I am providing you in the assignment links to outside sources that deal with the issue of book banning regarding Huck Finn and censorship. Okay. You can use one of those articles, or you can do some online research yourself and decide, if you want to find a credible source to use that you found in support of yourself. Okay. Now, again, you have to quote from, at least use two quotations from outside sources, and use MLA format for those. And then, of course, on a separate piece, not on the same page as your letter, you need a properly formatted works cited page for anything that you cite. Obviously, Huck Finn will be there, and then whatever outside additional sources other than Huck Finn that you are referencing in your letter. All right. So, whoopsie. You can tell I'm not great with this. All right. Okay. So that's basically the format of the letter. All right. So here's some suggestions that I offer for you. All right. Read some letters to the editor. All right. So all I did this morning was type in letters to the editor, and you get all different papers. So here's just for, these are ones that are in the New York Times from yesterday. So you have coronavirus, March 31st, rollback of pollution rules, pandemic affecting the presidential race, stop attacking Dr. Fauci. I could get behind that one, Dr. Fauci. Birth plans, uplifting stories. So again, these are not written by people who work for the paper. These are just written by citizens. And they were decided to be published. And this one's not very long. Oh, here, this is one where they're asking you for them. See, so that's what they want you to write a letter about. But you can just Google, letters to the editor, and Look, all of these are examples, right? Oh, for students at the end, we don't need that. There we go. So here's the New York Times. That's the one I pulled up. But here we go, the Washington Post, bunch of different ones, Chicago Tribune, and I'm sure the Los Angeles Times. You can type in Philadelphia Inquirer and get some, so you can take a look at those. Okay. All right. So take a little bit of time, right, looking at those if you're really stuck onto how this should sound. You need to make sure you follow that structure that I just laid out. Remember, it is an argument, so you want to have language that is persuasive. You want to be forceful. You want to not be wishy-washy in your position and use words that kind of are qualifiers, like maybe, or suggest. Right? You want to use words that are, I believe this is how the school board should go. I adamantly, object to having it removed. Whatever, you want to make sure you're using forceful language, right? And here, this is important. Remember, your goal is to convince readers that you have something to say and that your opinion is worth considering. That's important, right? You are trying to persuade me, and you're going to do that because you have read the book and you have opinions about it, and because you understand the story and because you understand what's going on in the book. All right. There is also, of course, no excuse for spelling errors, grammar errors, sloppy fragmented sentences. You're still going to need to make sure that what you are turning into me is a good, polished, revised, edited version of your letter. And I'll say it again. It does not matter what position you're taking. What matters is how well that you argue and present your argument in a clear, logical, persuasive manner that shows me you understand the novel. Okay. All right. So, like I said, I'm going to provide you with sources. All right. So here's a bunch of different ones. So I have the links here. You can just cut and paste them. But I lost my cursor. All right. So I'm just going to click on it. All right, there we go. All right, so this is the first one. It's from the New York Times, and it's called Light Out Huck, They Still Want to Civilize You. All right, so the author is right here. Here's the author. Mikiko Kakutani is the author, right? So that's the author's name right there. And all right, author's name. I gotta hit the pen thing again. And there's the date that it's published. Okay. All right. So this is going through and showing you all the different arguments, right? Okay. Here's a correction to the article that you might want to read too. All right. So that's an article that you can use to help support your position one way or the other. All right. So let's go back to our document here. All right. Let's see what this next one is. Oh, I included this one because why isn't it letting me copy it? All right, we're just going to cut and paste then. Sorry. Aha, here we go. All right, so this is from the LA Times. Again, you need to make sure that you have, right, so this is Michael. All right, I don't know what's going on here, but Michael Schwab is the author, and here's the date of publication. Here it is. My computer is now all of a sudden decided to be wonky. All right, so as you can see, here we go again. Huckleberry Finn pulled from a Pennsylvania high school curriculum. So that's a local one, right? So there's an article you can look and see what that one has to say. All right, and then the third link that I provided you in the assignment, this one is from the New York Times, and this one's great because it offers you a whole series of, so this one is called Does One Word Change Huck Finn? All right, so it's an actual debate. So all of these people here on the left side, right, all of these authors here offer context for the debate. So you get multiple perspectives on this issue, right? So here's the first one, right? Right. Okay. So this one here, and then you can go to this one. Okay. So you see that you get a bunch of different perspectives, and you can down here, you can go back and forth among them all. So there's a whole debate within this page, within these pages, entitled Room for Debate. That's the name of the okay, I don't know why my pen isn't working anymore. But Room for Debate. And so this is a really great source. Now you would cite each of these individually because you have an author and you have a date, right? Okay. And so you would cite whichever particular one you're using, but there's several of them there. However, if you simply type over Huck Finn, you can go in, right? So here we go, CBS. That's the video that I showed you guys, though, right? While the controversy, you can see there are a ton of articles. You want to make sure when you are doing research for yourself, though, that you do not pick something that's just either like a blog post or just someone's like random page that they're arguing over. You want to make sure that there's something credible about the source that you're using. Okay. All right. So, like I said, you can use those or you can find one for yourself. All right, we're going to come back to that. All right. Here is a breakdown of everything that you need to have in your letter. All right. So we have pretty straightforward where what I'm going to be looking at and this, the point values. And then over here, you'll see this is a rubric that explains to you the levels of that I'm looking for between exemplary and what would be considered unsatisfactory. So if you are, over here, and, you're in this column, this is going to get you, A to basically, A minus, B plus probably to B, C plus to C, and this is, the D plus D category. All right. So if you are, doing this over here, you can pretty much figure out where, you're going to end up in terms of point value up in this thing. Okay. So these two are going to work together to help you. All right. The last thing I've included in this assignment packet is this example. Okay, so this is an example of a letter or how it might look. All right, so you start out, you want to make sure you have the date. It's important, you want to use block format, right? So all of your margin in your letter is going to be lined up the same. Okay, so you're going to use block style letter writing. So you have to have a date, and then you can decide what you want to put here. Into you can, it could be, you might want to say members of the school board. But you need some sort of, introduction, salutation, good morning. All right. And then now you would obviously say who you are, right? You say, I am a St. Basil Academy student, and I am writing in response to the school community's recent decision to remove the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn from the school. Having recently read this and studied this classic American novel in school myself, I adamantly insist that the community reverse that decision and continue allow the novel to be taught because, all right, now you could either end it there with the period, or you can list your, reasons here. Okay. Now you're gonna have body 1. I explained what that is. Body 2, body paragraph 3, right? And then you'll need to conclude. Whoop. Forgetting I did that. All right, then you need body. All right, so at your 3 body paragraphs where you're going to have your quotations, it's up to you where you want to use the quotations from your outside sources. You can choose to do that in your counter argument discussion. You only need 2, so it can either be, in each of the body paragraphs, or it can be in one of the body paragraphs and a counter discussion paragraph. Okay, it's up to you. But the 2 body paragraphs must have 1 quote each from the book. Okay. And then at some point you decide where you want to put those other extra 2 sources. All right. So then your conclusion. Thank you for your consideration of my argument. To keep the novel out of the hands of students is to forbid a much needed discussion about the history of slavery, the role of religion, the importance of finding one's beliefs. Please do the right thing and do not censor this book. Right. So you want to end it on a, kind of, bold assertion, some really persuasive language, whatever direction you're going in that final concluding paragraph. Then you need to, sincerely, you'll have your name handwritten. And then when you are doing this, you need to have contact information. So, your address, and use your Basil email, please, only. Okay. All right. So that's basically what the assignment looks like. So I am going to end this video here, and I'm going to start a new one talking to you a little bit about citations and where we go from here. Okay? All right. So that's it for video number 1.